We're there. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the channel. I see, dear brother Sean Sands. Yes, peace to you. So, look, today we're going live. We've been going to live several times recently, and we've been doing some interviews, and it's just all kind of has worked out. Allah has blessed us to have things work out the way, uh, in a beneficial way, I would say. But today we have a very special guest, Dr. Yusuf Malik Frederick. He is a pioneering scholar, researcher, and spiritual healing advocate who holds a Ph.D. in trauma psychology, a J.D. in law, and a B.A., a bachelor's in theology and biblical languages. So he has several, that's layered. There's some layered subjects or disciplines. His interdisciplinary work is deeply rooted in the study of compound trauma, with a particular focus on the intersection of spiritual abuse and racial trauma within the African American Muslim community. And other marginalized groups. Now, he is the author of a forthcoming book, I Love Islam, but I'm Tired of Muslims. Uh, how spiritual abuse and racial trauma intersect to cause psychological distress among African American Muslims. Now, before welcoming you officially onto the show, Doctor, uh, um, I have to, just really give a shout out. I first got wind of you, Masjid ul Haq. Uh, you were a guest there, and you were doing a presentation, and on their Instagram page, they've been very active, particularly with the new Imam, Imam Mustafa Brent, and he was posting. So I just got in the thread. I said, well, how do we get in contact with the Sheikh? I like what he has to say. I listened to a good amount of your presentation originally, and then they were putting out more and more clips. So he DM'd me, and he sent me your information. He said, "Well, look, just give him my name, and tell him I sent you or something like that. You know how we do. Like, look, he gave me the hookup. So it took me a while. I had some other things going on, but when I got back into, no, when I was going to head back into the country, that's when I first reached out to you a couple weeks back, and you and I touched bases. So we had planned to do tonight, but I had shared with you. It was interesting because I shared with you the African American Islamic Summit that's coming up this weekend. We were just talking about some things in general. And you said, well, look, hook me up. Let me, I'll come out there. I'd love to present, so on and so forth. So I said, okay. When we hung up the phone yesterday, I reached out. I think I voice messaged Imam Amin Muhammad from Masjid Muhammad in Atlantic City. And he sent me a message this morning. I left it, I just left it where it is. You know how it is. You just pass off information. He texted me this morning. He said, basically, we had a vibrant discussion with the brothers. So many words. He sent me a YouTube link. I'm saying, well, what happened? So when I hit it, lo and behold, you all were getting it in on the show. So I was really, I was really happy to see that. And I watched. I think I watched the majority of it. Um, and I think some very salient points were brought out. So what I would like to do is really, first of all, thank you for joining us and welcome you onto the show.
Thank
Assalamu
you. Salam. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. It is really a blessing to see you and to be here with you. And I appreciate the hookup with the Black Imams Roundtable. That was very vibrant yesterday. A great discussion with those learned imams, and it's good to be with you today.
Yes, sir. And one of the things that I have not. This will be my first time in attendance, and I shared this with you before. This will be my first time in attendance at the summit. And as I'm hearing from you and connecting with you, one of the things that I value is our ability as African American Muslims to really engage one another and build for the future of our communities. Obviously, we're part of the broader African American community, and we're part of the American fabric for sure. We are members of the African family tree for sure, and we're part of humanity as descendants of Adam, Bani Adam. But Allah gives us a command, and we sort of emphasize that a lot on the channel. Well, Allah, He actually says, or He gives it at least an invitation: "O you who believe, save yourselves and your families from the fire whose fuel is men and stones." So I'm going to give this like as a general introduction. The way I have seen it, I was taught this way by my teacher, and the way we have articulated it on the podcast is that, you know, our life as a peculiar social group can be understood as beginning once we were brought here in America. Again, we are no doubt members of the African family tree. That's in us for sure. But at the same time, we know that not even all African groups are the same. They're not one homogenous, you know, whole. You have different expressions of the African people. So the Sudanese are not the same as the Ghanaian, though they do share as part of this broad context. Now, no less is true for us. We may have been different ethnic groups, spoken different languages, had different religious customs, but being brought into the Americas and subjected overall, though we do have some variation amongst us, subjected to a common set of psychological. I mean, we can say it's political, sociological, whatever, but I'm looking at the effect on us as a psychological as a group in our spiritual reality. The conditions that we were put under from the time we were put on the plantation through Jim Crow, the freedom struggle, etc. It formed us in a very unique way to whereas we become a unique group or a new group within the broader African family tree, for want of a better way of putting it. And a part of that newness of our spirituality, our spiritual expression, of course, we have gospel, we have blues, we have jazz, we have these things that just come out of the African American soul. But we also have a very peculiar reading and approach to the scriptures, first and foremost, the Bible. And this is why we get figures such as the Denmark Vesey's, the Nat Turners, who read into the scripture in a way that perhaps, even though it may have been read this way before, like the founding fathers clearly saw hints towards the promised land, etc., they also saw the sort of mandate to take the cause of liberation in their own hands, and they felt that this was a divine mandate. And we see these various varying expressions of biblically inspired freedom struggle amongst our people in light of our condition. But in the stream of that history, another group, some others among us, left the church, and we decided to go the way of Islam. Dr. C. Eric Lincoln, he termed these movements such as the Moorish Science Temple of America, even the Ahmadiyya movement, perhaps the Nation of Islam, he termed them proto-Islamic movements, meaning that these were not movements that were really engaged in articulating or establishing the classical expression of Islam as known the world over. But the language, you know, Muhammad and Allah and Quran, these, like, we were becoming Islamized, whatever, you know, it's for want of a better term. But the main emphasis was on the main draw was this desire in us to be liberated as a people. Of course, there comes a time, most notably in 1975, because the Nation of Islam was the biggest of these movements, though there were some Sunni groups in existence. This proto-Islamic movement, the Nation of Islam, was the largest and most impactful on the Black American psyche. The transition of that community came about, or it was initiated in 1975. And then after that, we see a huge influx of other expressions of what Islam is. And to just fast forward from then until now, and I think this is where a lot of your research comes in. The African American Muslim community is a community that's in the process of growing. We have been connected to Islamic tradition to some degree or another, or the other, and this has had an impact on us, like all experiences, like all of those other experiences I just named. The point being, not only has the history of Jim Crow and slavery and the Christian church had a psychological impact on us. Your research, as I understand, is really the first to seriously document up until this point what has the experience of al-Islam, at least as we have received it up until this point, what has been the impact of that upon us. So that's my bro. I'm not going to talk this much as we go on. I just wanted to sort of lay like this broad framework, and I think that's why your research comes into it's very important at this moment. So I guess my first question is, can you give us an overview of your research and what really brought you in this direction?
Well, first of all, Imam, your grounding by way of your introduction of this show is really a service to me and to the people listening, and is just about the best articulation of, in 5 minutes or however long you took, of our history, not only our social history and civil history, but also the spiritual journey that the African American has been through since 1619 and our delivery of from Africa to the shores of Jamestown, Virginia. Your tracing of the Africas and how we related to each other on the continent as Black indigenous people, and not being homogenous in how we were there, and the uniqueness that the American experience have brought us, and really the creation of, quote unquote, a different Black man with a different Black experience in a foreign land that will become his own, and that has become his own, and the uniqueness of who we are and our experience. That is really germane to my research. One has to understand that our experience in the world is a different experience. And one has to also understand that going through chattel slavery, which is a unique experience. Now, some people say slavery has already existed. That is true, but is also not true. Slavery from wars and slavery from battles and that type of subjugation slavery existed, but not chattel slavery.
Right.
Not where we are owned, not where a human being is owned like a dog or a cat or a donkey or a goat or a cow. Not where you are owned and destroyed as if you are chattel, personal property.
Right.
That was new. And the newness of that and the impact of that on the human psyche is still being studied. When I looked at, coming from the Christian theological background and being a Christian minister for several years and being trained in that tradition and being converted to Islam over the last 31 years and coming into this new experience for the last 31 years, of course, I've been making some observation as I matriculated through my own Islamic experience. And I juxtaposed that experience with my own lived experience in Christianity. And I saw the comparisons, I saw the convergence and the divergence that existed in both. And I begin to see with the convergence of the experience, as I look at and feel my own experience, I'm looking and seeing experiences that were fairly disturbing. Some of the experiences were familiar, but other experiences were disturbing. And let me explain what I mean. I grew up Catholic, and growing up Catholic, and I'm in my mid 60s, I'm 65. And growing up in the 60s and early 70s, you've got to understand that none of us existed in isolation. We were growing up within what is called a milieu of experiences. We were growing up in an environment, in this United States environment, in an environment where there was struggle for civil rights, there was struggle for housing, there was struggle for transportation, there was struggle for education, there was struggle for healthcare, as it is in certain aspects still existing today. But back in the 60s, as a Catholic boy, I was always religiously inclined. So I was an acolyte, right? Kind of a young priest, right? And as an acolyte in those days, when you were assisting the priest, the Mass, as it's called, the service, is being conducted in Latin. Nothing is being conducted in English. The Bible is being read by the priest in Latin. The congregation only has what is still called now congregational responses. We didn't read the Bible ourselves. The Bible was read to us by the priest from the pulpit, and the congregation had certain preordained responses, either Amen or other type responses to whatever the priest said. And so one of the first things that jumped out at me in my Islamic experience, I'm just talking about my own lived experience now, is the whole concept of the emphasis on Arabic experience. And of course, understandably, the Quran was revealed in Arabic. And understandably, there are those students of knowledge who have learned the depths and the nuances of the language, which is essential for their role. As a Christian minister, when I went to the seminary, I learned Greek and Hebrew because the Old Testament was translated from the Dead Sea Scrolls into Greek. I'm sorry. The New Testament was translated from the Dead Sea Scrolls into Greek. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew, some Aramaic, but mostly Hebrew. And so as a young theological student, 18, 19 years old, I pride myself in being able to read Greek and read the New Testament in its original form, and read the New Testament, the Old Testament and the New Testament in their original forms, in order to, delve deeper and, write sermons and be able to expound on it and do, exegesis and those kinds of things, get real deep. And so I get that exercise. However, for John Q. Public, who is sitting in the Musalla, I always wondered how they translated their own experience, not being able to be a fluent Arab speaker, not being able to pray in Arabic, not being able to read the Quran in its original revelation language. And so I related to that on a certain level.
I see.
Right. And that concerned me from the masses perspective, because I had to struggle to learn Arabic myself, and I'm still struggling. And I had to struggle to be able to make my salat in all Arabic and recite the Quran, Alhamdulillah in Arabic and those kinds of things. But I always wondered what's happening with the guy next to me? What's happening with the children? What's happening with Grandma Khadijah, who is on the floor, or Grandpa Kareem, who is on the floor? I'm wondering what's going on in their minds. And so that was one of the most obvious things that jumped out at me. And then as I matured in the faith, coming from a ministerial perspective, I saw, of course, now that there were all of the social problems that existed in the church existed
such as
in the masjid. Well, I mean, the gossiping, the backbiting, the all of those social ills, okay, the jealousy and all of that.
Yeah.
But what I didn't expect was the other problems that did not exist in the church that exist in Islam by virtue of the deen, as a direct result of what our faith teaches us, but how different members and different communities and different leadership interpret, translate, and deliver the message. And let me explain what I mean. Now, in Islam, the man has the right to marry up to 4 wives. So there's the aspect of polygyny within the context.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at this and I am listening to different horror stories that's going on with brothers that are, how they are marrying these women and what's going on and which has an aspect of the deen, but it's a weaponization and a corruption of how it's being practiced now.
Okay.
Right. So now I'm looking at a male-dominated patriarchal interpretation and delivery of some of the teachings that is causing a whole slew of problems within the family, within the home, with the children, with the wives, and other issues. For example, woman goes to the imam, and you've been an imam for several years. Woman goes to the imam and says, hey, my husband is beating me and I'm experiencing domestic violence. Depending on what methodology that imam subscribes to, he says to her, well, you've got to be patient, this is a test from Allah.
Yeah.
Right. And the woman is saying to herself, it felt like a punch in the face to me.
SubhanAllah.
But he
So
is
you
like,
said the woman said, so this is someone you've interviewed.
oh yeah.
Okay,
This I am taking you on the journey of what I saw as I matriculated and grew in Islam in the Black community. And I'm not a PhD yet, but I am seeing these things. I am having a lived experience with all of these issues, and all of these issues that I'm seeing and hearing, and just as a member, they are resonating with me. And my only assessment of them is to compare them with my own lived experience back when I was in the ministry in the church.
Yeah.
So I'm making those comparisons. I'm talking to people, and I'm talking with brothers. I'm talking with, sisters that I know, but I'm not romantically involved with them. I'm just talking as a professional with them. Okay. And they are sharing their own lived experience. So I'm seeing that there's a lot of other stuff within this Islamic Black experience that does not exist to this extent where I came from. Okay, because this is a whole new slew of problems that is as a result of the weaponization of some of the teachings and the toxic interpretation of some of these teachings. I'm going to fast forward because of time. So now I'm in a PhD program. I'm studying trauma psychology, and it's nearing time for my dissertation. This is over a 5-year period now. And I'm thinking about all these great intellectual things that I can do for my dissertation. And in talking with my wife, who is a Muslim from Philadelphia, which have their own flavor there in Philly, and I'm saying, wow, these issues keep coming back around, and maybe I should do my academic dissertation and look into some of this, right? So I remember from my church days, there was something called church hurt. Church hurt is the same scenario where you have people who are weaponizing the Bible for their own purposes, for their own goals. Okay. And so I decided that I'm going to look into this problem called spiritual abuse within the African American Muslim community. But then I thought about it, and I thought about all of the history and the uniqueness of Islam coming to the Black man in America, and how that is kind of translated, interpreted, and how that develops, and how we accept that and begin to practice it. So I decided to look at the compound nature or the layered nature of racial trauma, racial discrimination, and how that has played into how this Islamic experience with abuse is internalized, and what effect that intersection of the two has on African American Muslim psyche and their psychological disposition. And that was the evolution. I'm sorry to take so much time.
No, this is good.
What the evolution of the thesis ended up being and the research over the past 2 years.
No, I thank you for that. So are you saying that on the one hand, African Americans are just some traumatized people? Or would you say that?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
And then your research is saying, so this is the psychological state of Black
Yes,
Americans on the whole. How
yes,
has this played itself out in the masjid?
yes. How has that gotten better or worse
Right, right,
in the
right.
masjid?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so
So
let me give you the first social science example. Here is a young man working in a pizza parlor. He is 19 years old, doesn't have a criminal record.
mhm,
Okay. He has finished his shift. It's 9 o'clock at night. He's going home. He is not riding dirty. He has no drugs in the car, no guns in the car.
yeah,
He has a clean record. But of course, he is living in an environment where he is not isolated from the Trayvon Martin videos, from
mhm,
these other, devastating
mm,
videos of police brutality and all of those things. He has seen, people be choked to death. He has
yeah,
seen the George Floyd and all that. So he's on his way home. All of a sudden, he looks in the rearview mirror and he's being followed. He
yeah,
sees the Christmas tree lights come on. He knows now it's a police officer,
yeah,
and the police officer bumps the siren, won't, and the young man pulls over. The police parks, catty corner, the way they park, gets out the car, starts walking towards the young man's car. And before the police officer can get to him, he gets out the car and bolts out, starts
mm,
running. Of course,
yeah.
he gets shot in the back and killed.
Spawn.
I asked myself, why did he run?
Right.
He wasn't riding dirty, didn't have any drugs, didn't have any warrants, didn't have any guns, had a clean record. What happened to this young man? Why did he bolt out the car like that?
Yeah, yeah,
The only answer
yeah.
is a phenomenon called vicarious trauma,
Okay.
where this young man has become so sensitized about police brutality. And of course, you and I and everyone else listening to us understand that if you are driving while Black and you're getting pulled over,
Yeah,
particularly at night, that could be a defining moment. I mean, you may not react like that because the fact of the matter is, out of every 3 people that experience an event, okay, 30% of them, meaning 1 out of 3, becomes traumatized. The same event. You have 3 people experience the same event. Okay. One of them is going to be psychologically messed up. The other 2 will be fine. They
yeah,
walk away like nothing happened. They just brush it off their shoulders. But that one is the one that is traumatized. Well, he was that one.
that was the
Okay.
one.
And so his nervous system kicked in, his fight, flight, or freeze mechanism kicked in, and he engaged in flight. He was killed. So here you have, from a social perspective, you have people, you have Black men and Black women who are walking around with trauma, either from their own lived experience or from someone they knew,
Yeah.
or the third is genealogically. I mean, there is a biological
Mhm,
term called epigenetics,
mhm, mhm.
which actually is the transference of historical trauma through our genes,
But one
where
second, doctor.
it's handed down. Yes,
Not to cut you off, but before we go on, can you define trauma? Because
trauma
it's one of
is
those terms that's used loosely.
it's very important. Trauma is an overwhelming event that occurs in the life of an individual that overloads their nervous system.
Mm.
Okay, that's very important. That overloads their nervous system, meaning that you get overloaded. If you are not overloaded, then you haven't been traumatized. If your nervous system, if you have experienced an event, but your system is not overloaded so much so that you are unable to cope.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key with trauma, that you are unable to cope. Your coping mechanism shuts down, and it's either you do one of several things. Either you fight back based on your animal instinct and your survival instinct, or you flee, okay, like this young man in my example, or you freeze up. Right? You just freeze, you become catatonic, right? So that's the overloading. Yes.
And that comes to us through either personal experience, vicarious experience, like I saw my mother get beat, so now anytime a man raises his voice, or through spiritual inheritance. I'm using spiritual inheritance, but use
epigenetics.
Yes.
Through epigenetics. And this is stuff, whatever I tell you, there is academic research that supports this, okay? And the academic research, I mean, there's several academic research that supports this, but one of the most telling academic research that supports this was done with the Jews from the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Where you have Holocaust survivors, these individuals who survived the Nazi encampment or Nazi imprisonment or some aspect of the Holocaust. They lived through it.
Yeah.
And their children and their children's children, so their grandchildren, 2 generations removed, who did not experience the Holocaust, who did not experience any of what their mother or their grandmother experienced, but when tested, when given psychological test, they registered trauma, although they were never there back in the Holocaust. They're for 2 generations removed, right?
Yeah.
So we know that there is epigenetic transfer of trauma, genealogically speaking, okay, through generations. So you have that one aspect. So everyone sitting in the mosque, everyone that's coming to Juma, coming to Tahrawih prayer, everyone has some traumatic experience going in as a baseline.
So can I just enter again, because I want to make sure that I'm seeing it, and I want to clarify for those listening. Just for, would you say, because we all are those of us who are the descendants of slaves and Jim Crow, etc. I know my grandfather, my great grandmother. I know their history. So as almost a matter of principle, or as a point of departure, all African Americans have, or the vast majority have, the epigenetic, the inherited trauma. Number one.
Yes.
Considering that same history, however, it's highly probable that the majority of us also have that vicarious trauma as well.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm asking, I'm listening to you. Would you say, or what would you say is the percentage of African Americans that possess all 3?
30%.
Okay.
Yeah, 30%. The 1 in 3. The 1 in 3. You have 3 brothers. And they're having conversations, and everyone is talking and laughing, but one brother is not saying anything, and they're talking about the home, how they grew up together, mommy and daddy, and 2 of the brothers refer to him as the soft one or the sensitive one, and all of that, right? The fact of the matter is The other two, they're fine.
Right.
They're fine. Daddy was just tough. Daddy was just hard on all of us. He was a disciplinarian, even though he would come home drunk and he would smack mommy from time to time. Didn't affect them at all, at least so they think, unless they have their own families and they are emulating the same conduct that daddy did.
Yeah, that's
right. And the woman is feeling the brunt of what their mommy felt. Right. So even though they may not automatically be repeating that behavior, the fact of the matter is they are functioning as if they are fine. But there's one of them that's messed up, though. He is somatically, physically messed up, And so if you're talking about did all of them get affected? The answer is yes. Okay. And it will show up in different ways. In a lot of ways, it shows up as what we call ACE, adverse childhood experiences. And ACE is responsible for about 80% of all adult behavior. Okay. In other words, all adult behavior, 80% of it, you can trace it back to people when there was some experience as a child.
Right.
But that one person out of the three, that 30%, that 1/3, they are messed up. And you can see that they are messed up. Right. And everybody knows, something wrong with that one.
Right.
Okay.
But those other two still, like you said, on the floor or in the masala, they all carry something.
They all carry something. They are there too. And then now you layer on top of that. You layer on top of that the spiritual abuse. So now you have that brother in the household, and he is telling that sister, well, you can't go out after dark. You can't go out after Maghrib. Or he is engaging in economic abuse. He has all the money. He doesn't give her an allowance. She has to ask for money to go to buy her feminine needs and all of those kinds of things. Or in some instances, and these are actual interviews now based on the research, or there is something that you call, it is conjugal abuse, where you have Muslim husbands that are forcing their wives to have children, right? Like against their will, and now they are quoting hadith, which to us, as you know, is a sacred scripture, so to speak, because we accept all the Quran and the hadith, right? So they're talking about, well, we're responsible for making the Ummah of Muhammad the biggest Ummah, better than any other Ummah, better than Musa's Ummah, better than Isa ibn Maryam's Ummah. So no birth control, no nothing. And this woman is being made. So here you have, once you start quoting and once you start spiritualizing the oppression, therein lies the spiritual abuse, right? Where you are now condemning me to heaven or hell and coercing a certain conduct from me.
Yeah.
And in order to get that conduct or behavior out of me, then you are saying to me that, okay, the angels are not pleased with you if you go to bed mad with me. So even though I'm treating you poorly, you've got to sleep with me at night.
You talking about sex?
I'm talking about sex. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where women have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Brother, I interviewed women for my research, Muslim African American women. And I'll just tell you, 100% of the women that I interviewed were on some kind of psychiatric drug.
Wow.
100%. 25% of all the women I interviewed were suicidal and had at least attempted suicide at least once. Okay.
How many, if you can give a number, you gave the percentage.
I had my population pool was 285 people.
Okay.
And let me give you an interesting statistic so that your audience understand. 51% of them were men. 49% were women. And as I told the imam, the Black Imam Roundtable last night, 90% of them self-identified as Sunni Muslims. The other 10% was a smattering between the Nation of Islam, Salafi, and Shia. Well, I think there were a few Sufis as well.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And so let's look at this, because there's a sister I'm aware of. I think she's if she has not completed her studies in the mental health field, she's in that space right now. And I have admiration for her in terms of the content that she produces. She sort of addresses these issues from, as much as I can tell, from the woman's side, spiritual abuse, etc. And I remember listening to a clip from her, and she was basically making the observation. I mean, I'm going to put this in very crass terms. Like, basically, if the brother was a player in his old life and he comes into Islam, that's before Islam. Now he's in Islam, and now he wants a bunch of wives, and he's trading them out. So she's basically, there's a behavioral pattern that just really gets, and I don't want to cheapen her words, but I'm just putting it in these simplified terms. There's a behavioral pattern. It just becomes switched over. It just, you
yeah. Well, and see, that's an observation.
Right.
Okay. That's an observation. Let me tell you something. There is no research except for mine that I am aware of in existence that deals with the African American Muslim community and compound trauma of spiritual abuse and racialized historical trauma.
Right.
There is no research out there. If you Google that, you will probably only come up with my research. And because I looked into it for the last 2 years. And in fact, the only African American research on very, very few, when I say few, I'm talking about less than 10 in the whole United States, scholarly. Now, I'm not talking about someone writing a blog. That is not academic research. I'm not talking about someone just writing an article on their website. No, research is it is a magic word in academia. Right? Someone who has conducted research, it's either in one or two categories. It's either quantitative research, which is based on an experimental, quantitative, a numerical, systematic, statistical, evidentiary research, or it is qualitative, which is based on phenomenological information based on interviewing and coding and getting rich thematic data from people. So you have two strands of research, but the research must be able to be replicated. If what you did can't be replicated, you can't just Google something and said, I researched that. That is not research, sir. You just look something up.
Right.
And you don't even know the authenticity of what Google spit it out to you, because garbage in, garbage out. Right? So research is a whole process.
Yeah.
Right. And for those of us who have PhDs attached to our name, it's usually a 5 to 7 year process. Right. It's not somebody looking up something or somebody having a feeling about something, and because they experience something, say, well, you know, I researched this. About when I talk about research, I'm talking about an academic process. And so from that perspective, what we have done, and my research, by the way, was a mixed method study. It was both qualitative and quantitative, because I know that I'm dealing with Negroes. And so you can't just come and say, hey, I talk with 5 people and this is what they told me. But I have the numbers, the statistics, and the quantitative empirical data, plus the qualitative data as well. And so that combination, that mixed method, is what I did in my study.
So going back to this particular sister that I referenced, she comes to mind, but I hear a lot of sisters, and I don't know. And this is what I hear a lot of sisters, and something in me says, well, because I do know, working in the imam capacity, you get both sides. I know about the husbands that have been cheated on. I know about the husbands that have been hit. I know about the husbands whose bank accounts have been dried out. And men tend to just not go online and say, hey,
correct,
these sisters ain't right. So women just tend to, that's their way. But from your research, do you see the act of one party traumatizing another or abusing?
Absolutely.
Does the abuse lean in one direction stronger than another direction?
When it comes to domestic abuse, it leans more towards the woman being the oppressed.
Okay.
And let me repeat that. It leans more towards that way. It is not exclusively that way, as you have just pointed out. Okay. Men experience domestic abuse as well, but not near the numbers. Men would experience it maybe about 30% versus 70% of the woman experiencing it.
Wow.
The brothers experience spiritual abuse more within the context of the community, actually. The community at large, where you have certain methodologies, certain methabs that different African Americans communities follow that are more oppressive than others. So the brother will go to the masjid, and this is in my book, it's in my dissertation. One brother, we use the pseudonym for him, we call him Abdul, and Abdul, let's say, grew up Muslim. I mean, he was born into the Muslim family. In fact, he is from your tradition, right? The Warith Deen type tradition. And his father was Muslim, and he had 3 brothers. He is the middle brother. So he had an older brother, and he had an older brother, a younger brother, and he had a sister. So there were 4 siblings. Okay. And after 1975 and mass conversion into Sunni Islam, his father joined a Salafi community. Okay. And he was around 10. Okay. And that day, his thobe, he's a kid. His thobe is dirty, but he recalls it like it was yesterday. His thobe is dirty. He goes to the masjid with just a regular pants and shirt. Right. An elder in the leadership of the masjid pulls him aside physically and ask him, where is his thobe? He said, well, it's dirty. He says to him, you look like a kafir. And Allah will deal with you. Well, that little boy was traumatized because of that. You understand? I mean, if that little boy feared Allah and to call him an unbeliever and then to rebuke him to Allah's wrath is extreme. It's extreme.
Yeah, if you consider a young boy at 10 or 11 going to make prayer, he obviously takes God seriously.
Absolutely.
So he's there
at the masjid, bro.
Yeah. So he takes God seriously. So that communication to him may have more impact than one of these boys who don't take God that seriously.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you have others that were rebuked and had a visceral reaction for wearing pants that is not above their ankles, right? And, the hadith that, anything you have below the ankles is in the hellfire, right? So that essentially you're going to hell, okay, for your westernized pants, right? In some of these communities, going back to the Abdul example, one morning his dad woke them up for Fajr, and his 7-year-old, the baby of the family, was taking a while to wake up. He's groggy and stuff like that. And the dad got physical with the baby. The older brother now couldn't take it anymore, jumped on the dad, and they started fighting in the house, physically fighting, right? And that spirit that day and that week never left the house. And that event was a watershed moment in that home. After that, Abdul said, when he turned 17, he left the house for good. He went off to North Carolina to college and said he don't want to see his father again. His older brother, the baby, the younger brother, and the sister has since left Islam. They are no longer Muslims. They apostated. And Abdul is still a Muslim. He's married, has a family, has children now, 2 girls and another on the way. And but it scarred him.
Yeah.
It scarred him. So for the men, my point is the community. And what my research found is that spiritual abuse rests on 3 stools, or it's a 3-legged stool. The first is doctrinal weaponization or toxic theology, where people just corrupt the teachings or use the Quran and Sunnah in a way to further their own ends, or whether or not that is to keep a woman in check, or from a community standpoint to in the community to check people, right?
Yeah.
So that's the doctrinal weaponization or toxic theology. Then you have what is called institutional betrayal. There are several women and men that talked about institutional betrayal based on male domination, where the imam and the community, the institution, okay, the masjid, does not protect the vulnerable. And so you go to the imam and you go to the majlis for protection, and they spiritualize
Yeah.
your suffering.
Mm.
Okay. And yeah, and they don't have what the research called institutional courage to be able to deliver that sheep as a shepherd, to deliver that sheep out of harm's way.
Yeah.
And so these vulnerable members feel abandoned, and they feel like they've got to fend for themselves. Okay. And they engage in a litany of behavior. They, we can get into that another time. But the final leg in the three-legged stool is what we call epistemic injury. Epistemic injury is where you take someone's agency away from them, where you silence their testimony, where they are not allowed to express themselves and express their spirituality in a way that is organic to themselves. And you and I had a conversation about Dr. Umar, okay? And I was telling you that he is a classic example of spiritual abuse. He was born Muslim. He was born into the deen, okay? But something happened coming up along the way where someone gave him the wrong interpretation of where the Arabic language fits within his deen. And they made it so central that he feels to this day, as a grown adult, that he had to be able to learn a foreign language and worship God in a foreign language. And if he was unable to do that, then he had to leave, because God only spoke Arabic. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so he is like, well, why, I speak English.
Yeah.
I don't like, Arabic is not my native tongue, right? You can't tell me that God doesn't accept my dua organically. You can't tell me that God, even my thoughts are in English, right? And this is the problem with linguistics. Linguistics is so germane to the human experience. This is one of the things that makes us different from animals. I'm not talking about anatomically. I'm not talking about the nafs or the soul right now. So you theologians out there, don't parse my words and say that's not what makes us different to animals. Animals don't have a soul. I'm not getting into that theological discussion. We can have that if you want to, because I'm equipped to deal with it. But I'm just saying that the ability to have language and express yourself in your own language and be able to get in contact with your own spirituality in a way that is organic and in a way that is your testimony and in a way that resonates with you, is very, very important to the human psyche.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you're on the road. To me, that's been one of the things that I value. You know, Imam Muhammad's work has been criticized by some of these others, but one of the things that I really believe that he, you know, it's like surgery. You know, you have to be precise. You have to make sure that you're cutting and you're doing whatever you do with precision and a certain level of fineness.
You got to use a scalpel,
Yeah, yeah. Hold on, he froze up on me.
not a machete.
Yes, and he was very. I feel like a real African American Muslim. Full stop.
Yes.
And I've learned,
Yes.
you know, to recite Quran and all of that, but I feel like an African American man, and I think it's because of his leadership. And most of the other brothers, and this is not to critique them, but I sense from them, they may be more educated than me in the traditional sense. They may be more experienced than me in traveling the world, but I sense a conflict in them.
Well,
And I want to get to that point because and just to finish, I think that means a whole lot. Like when like the issue, like we're all like identity is the core. Like I am somebody. You know, I'm a entity. I'm a being, and I sense that. And this is kind of what I want to ask you about, because one of the things that the imam shared with us, he said the problem with most of the imams is that they're struggling with the same problems that they're really supposed to be addressing among the people. They're struggling with the same thing: abuse, whatever, from Black history, da 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 da. So I wanted to ask you, and I don't want to cut off whatever your train of thought. If you wanted to go in that vein, that's fine. But
no. You
why,
go
like,
ahead, sir.
where I hit my wife. I tell her after I hit her, if you don't have sex with me, the angels will be mad. Like, why am I like that?
My research addresses that. And there's an entire section of my research, and I talked about it on my first visit to Baltimore, Masjid al-Haq. It's called identity fragmentation, okay? Where you have the struggle of what we call in psychology meaning making, the struggle of meaning making, the struggle of someone really getting to the core of who am I? Okay.
Yeah.
Your declaration a minute ago is so powerful. How do you identify? You said, I am an African American Muslim man.
Yeah, for sure.
That is more powerful than you think, because that is a declaration of the self. It is a declaration of agency. It is a declaration of wholeness. It is a declaration of that, hey, I have a North Star. I'm not looking for me. I know who I am. Well, when you are Arabized, and again, going back to some of Dr. Umar's position in his interview with you, when you allow yourself to become so Arabized and they tap into your colonial mindset and they delegitimize who you are, deconstruct you, and say to you that the more that you identify with yourself, the less Muslim you are.
For sure.
Okay. And the less Arabic you speak is the less Muslim you are. Now, that's a different story. Now, if you were telling me, okay, learn the language so that I can understand the depths of the Quran, I can understand the Quranic science and all that, okay, I'm with you. But don't tell me that the determination for whether I go to Jannah Firdaus or whether or not I go to heaven at all is my ability to say Aleph Ba Tha with the right tajweed, I'll have to call nonsense on that.
You know, I'm laughing because this is no lie. I mean, I kind of keep some of these things to myself. It doesn't come out, but I actually remember being more like as a young man, you know, you attracted to women, and you know how the culture throws. There was a period of time in hip hop culture, it was like these Brazilian women, like it was like that was the look in all of the videos.
Mhm.
But I recall like learning, like the more I began to study, again, coming from my teacher and from my history, it made me like more African American. Like the more universal I became, the
Yes.
more Arabic I learned, I said, wow, these black women really do look good. And I remember when we was in high school, we used to like the light-skinned girl with the long
Yeah,
perm
yeah,
hair.
yeah, yeah,
But as
yeah.
we matured in our Islam, we started to like the locks and the nappy
Yes.
head, you know, and it was, that's why I'm laughing as you're saying that, because that's just, again, I sense, I like that word. I sense fracturing, or the
Yeah.
lack of wholeness in the sense of self. And,
Well, that's what it is. And you have got these young men in Philadelphia and these young men in Baltimore. You look at any breaking news, and Rashid is the one that they're looking for murder. Okay. Or Kareem is the one that just raped somebody, right? So you have all of these next generation Muslim kids that no one has taught them how to be authentic Muslim American and how to be an authentic being and not be a fractured self. And I tell you, the telling sign of their quest for authenticity, call them Muhammad in the mosque, but when they go to play basketball and in school, their friends call them Mo.
mm,
Right? Now,
yeah,
Muhammad is the most beautiful name. Okay. The name means the most praiseworthy.
yeah,
Right? How do you trade that for Mo?
yeah,
Well, the reason you trade it for Mo is because you have a fractured identity. You haven't come to grips or alignment with your African Americanness and your Muslimness.
right.
So you are code switching for your family and friends. And you're code switching for the people in the mosque because
Right.
you haven't found that sweet spot yet.
Yes.
You
So
know, and that's a problem.
so going back to the broader experience, like I listened to your interview on the Black Imams Roundtable, and as I understand, Imam Amin, he was making a point, or he was. I think that his position is that these sort of pathologies are more pronounced in a particular community,
Yes.
and you were saying that, look, I don't have the
I don't have the
research
data that bears that out.
to support that.
Now, that might be true from his observation and his lived experience, but his observation and lived experience is not research. I mean, and I respect them,
Right.
but they're not research. And so he challenged me to research it, and I
Yeah.
think it is worthy of research.
And
Um,
it's interesting because I didn't grow up in East Coast, because he was making a point. He made that point to me, like, you know,
yeah,
Philadelphia, Newark,
yeah,
this is like ground zero. It, so he was speaking about particularly like the areas you name, that's where the Salafi community is like a
yes.
stronghold. But you know, I spent 10 years in Atlanta, born and raised in Chicago. You know, I'm in and out of Detroit a lot, and in those areas you have a lot of Sufis,
Yes.
and I hear some of the same things.
And that is the point, because when I interviewed 285 people around the country, and you methodology is one part of the problem, no doubt. Methodology is one part of the problem. First of all, you have two halves of the problem. The first half is the epigenetical problem, where you have the historical and the current racial stresses within these United States. religion aside, right? Just from a social science theory, right? So you have this minority stress theory, which was part of my theoretical analysis, okay, where you have these stresses on us as African Americans every day, male and female alike, right? So that's one half of the problem. Then you have the other half is the spiritual abuse. Now, in that half of the problem, you have different strands. One strand is methodology of how people translate and how they interpret the sacred scriptures. Okay, that is just one strand of it. But another strand is the patriarchal leadership and the institutional betrayal. Then another strand is the epistemic injuries that occurs where this inability to express my spirituality in my own language, and I am being told on every Friday that my inability to speak a certain amount, a threshold of Arabic, makes me less religious in terms of less knowledgeable of my deen. And how do you expect me to feel if you're telling me that I don't know my religion? And the reason I don't know my religion is because I don't know this language. Right? I mean, that doesn't inspire, inspire confidence, right? So methodology, yes, is one aspect within the spiritual setting, but there are other legs to that stool within that half of that setting.
And I guess that's what I'm hearing when I hear Imam Amin make that point. What really comes to mind is the population density, like New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. There are more Muslims concentrated in that area. That's highly African American Muslims, what I'm speaking about.
Yes.
And because a certain expression of Islam, understanding of Islam, is part of that population because of just the sheer numbers. That's one thing. So it may be more like, just from a numbers perspective, this type of abuse, these kinds of problems show themselves more often in this population because just more of these people. However, the other point that I'm making is in a place like Atlanta, in a place like Detroit, in other areas where the population is not as big, but it's still Negroes. They may be Sufi, they may be WD. They're still displaying these same things.
Can I say something? And I hope that your audience wouldn't get upset with me, but there is a certain amount of niggerization of Islam.
Okay, I was trying to hold the word back, but I was going.
I'm just saying.
Imam Muhammad is a popular statement in his community. He was in one lecture. He said, "You all are new Muslims, but old niggas." And everybody in our community knows that. But go ahead. I mean, like, that's what I was trying not to say.
The niggerization of Islam is a problem, because what happens is we are introduced to these new ideas, these new religious ideas that was sent down from Allah to liberate us. But because we are such a unique being as African Americans, coming full circle with the conversation, that's how we started, right? The uniqueness of who we are. Because we are so unique in our social history, in our social order, what is meant to liberate us, we have gotten a hold of it and we are like a kid in a candy store, and we are just becoming septic based on how much we consume, because we are so giddy with the freedom to marry 4 wives, or to listen to the man in the house, that patriarchal, right? To have rights where Allah has given the woman rights in terms of the Sharia that he gave to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Where the, you know, I have rights as a husband, my wife has rights as a wife, and all of that. And so a very popular refrain in the home on both sides is, if you can stand as a spook outside the Muslim door, you can hear the wife invariably saying from time to time, well, I have rights. And you can hear the man saying from time to time, well, I have rights too, right? So, I mean, here they go. Islam has given them some rights, and it has become a problem, right?
Yes.
And so you have that kid in the candy store type of reflection or inflection within our communities, where what is meant for good is becoming problematic. And this has to be an all hands on deck approach.
Yeah.
My research does not only identify the problem. My research has also identified solutions to the problem.
Okay, so that's where I wanted to go, because we don't want to just in one of the, again, to refer to you also. I'm going back to the interview from last night. One of the things that you referenced, and again, I think this was Muhammad. You remember he kind of interjected. You were saying, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but you were basically saying that you interviewed or you spoke with some imams, and they did not, in their education, they didn't receive the equivalent of what in Western tradition would be like pastoral care.
Right.
And he made the observation, which I think was very well noted. This is true, that the university in an Islamic world, you're just getting a degree from the university. But
Yes.
the real tradition comes from teacher to student outside of that academic setting. And that's where you really get that heart to heart. And you learn, he mentioned the expression tarbiyah, you raise someone up. And so, and the sciences of the soul, the development of character.
Yeah, but let me just say this. I appreciate what he was saying, but that wasn't what I was saying. What I was saying was, I'm talking about the formal university training, and how Imam Amin Muhammad, who is a very special imam in his knowledge and in his delivery of that knowledge, his training within the imamate was somewhat unique, I believe, because the masses, as far as I know, and this is just, again, this is not based on any research or anything like that, but the imams out here that you see, they went to school at the university. They went to school in Saudi, or they went to school in Egypt, or they most of them went to Saudi.
And I think I think what you were saying was they went to school, and in that actual school there was nothing in place.
There was no curriculum. Just like I went to the university here in America, and part of the curriculum at the university was pastoral care, pastoral studies, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I was trying to compare apples to apples. When they go to school, in Saudi, wherever, they told me, several of them, that they studied certain Islamic sciences. They studied fiqh, they studied, hadith science, they studied all of that stuff, but they did not study how to care for auntie sitting on the musalla who just converted from being in the church 30 years and just came to Islam. Right.
And I think that his point, which I actually agree with, this part I do agree with, is that the difference. I'm with you. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think that he got it too. And this is from me just watching. But I think that what he's
I think he got it, but I got what he was saying as well.
Yeah, I think he wasn't saying it explicitly, but for the West, the university setting is the setting. That's the primary setting. Yes. In Islam, that's not the primary setting.
Yes, but even though that's true, but that's a distinction without a difference. I am not debating what's the primary setting and what's the secondary or the tertiary setting. I am debating how are the imams trained that are serving the people, regardless of what the correct setting is. And my hypothesis is that the ones I spoke to went to the university to learn how to be an imam. And in that university, they did not prepare them to pastor the people that they are over.
So I think the argument becomes, you are looking at, it doesn't matter. In the final analysis, this was their education. That's how I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
What he's saying, I think, is more of a structural critique. In the final analysis, what you're saying is the fact, because they didn't learn properly. This is the proper way. Okay. So
he was theologizing the issue. I'm not theologizing the issue. I am not.
You're looking at it empirically,
addressing whether or not there was a structural misstep in how Islam educates its people. I'm not on that.
Yeah. My camera's catching the ghost.
No, your camera's on. I am not debating whether or not how people should learn Islam, whether it's chest to chest or whether or not it's in a classroom setting. That is not my concern. I have no horse in that race.
You're saying in the final analysis.
In the final analysis, we have imams that's coming to us claiming to be students of knowledge, and they have the knowledge. They have the knowledge of the deen, and he will argue, well, they don't have all the knowledge of the deen and all of that. I'm not on that either. But whatever knowledge they have, it does not equip them to deal with the issues that they are experiencing in the community. And because they are short-handed, they have developed a set of platitudes that they give the members. Be patient, hold on, this is a trial, and all. And those are not real solutions to people's problems that they are dealing with. And so perhaps they need to get more training, or perhaps they need to, when I was in law school and when I was practicing law, we had something called CLEs, continuing legal education, that every year we had to get a certain amount of hours so that we can maintain our license, right? And every professional field has that kind of a thing. So what's wrong with imams having continual spiritual or religious training? I mean, their training doesn't have to cease now that they are not in Saudi anymore.
Right. So that's, and that, to me, bringing that part up was just a segue into the solutions. Now, you got a little bit more time?
Yes, sir.
So I do want to, before we go into solutions, it's something that I forgot. I do want to look at, and maybe you touched upon it. Let's look at the men and the women, the brothers and the sisters. For the brothers, is there something that jumps out the most as the burden they're dealing with? You say where it comes from, but is there any one particular burden that they're dealing with the most? And from the sisters, is there any one
Well,
burden?
I mean, brothers, the one burden for the sisters is the brothers.
Now, look, I was going to say, I didn't bring this up. Well, no, go ahead.
I'm just saying the burden for the sisters is the brothers. But the brothers have a very complex look. This is not you need to have another show where we can spend the first hour and a half on solutions, rather than us spending the first hour and a half on the problems and 10 minutes on solutions, right? Because there's not enough time to deal with this. It doesn't do it justice, is what I'm saying. The fact of the matter is, let me plug my computer in. The fact of the matter is that these issues are too complex and they are too layered to be able to just have one word solutions or a silver bullet. But the problem of the brothers are so multi-layered, because you've got to understand that the reason I use the word the intersectionality and intersection of spiritual abuse and racial trauma is because the word intersection in psychological research is a magic word, right?
Yes, sir.
Because intersectionality was developed by a Black woman, whose name is Crenshaw. Okay, and she was a Black female feminist, and she talked about the intersection of race, the intersection of gender, the intersection of sexism, right? And she developed this theoretical theory, this theoretical analysis based on intersectionality, right? And so when we talk about intersectionality as a theoretical analysis, that intersectionality means to analyze the problem based on structural deficiencies. Intersectionality of race and religion is structural. Okay, structural meaning that the whole society was built on the foundation of mechanisms to use your race and to use your gender in a way that disadvantages you. The deck is stacked against the Black man, the Black Muslim man. The deck is stacked against him structurally. Structurally, he is walking through a minefield from the time of puberty in America. He's walking through a minefield, okay? Because the structures that exist, and this is not some Black theology or Black power. I'm talking about psychologically now. I'm talking about intersectionality. And I'm talking about how intersectionality affects you and I and our sons. Right. And it affects us because intersectionality is not a figment of our imagination. It is a structural construct that exists to disadvantage the African-American male in a way that he will not be at the same starting line of the race among equals. So he's starting back here from his white counterpart, right? And so that structural disadvantage means that he has got to know himself. He has got to understand what he is feeling, because he's a man, he's a lion, he's a hunter. He has instincts. He has rational intellect. Okay? And we are in the middle of a game of the 3-card Monte, where you've got to figure out where the ball is. Okay? Which hand is the ball in? Where is it now? Under what cup is it at?
Yeah.
Right? And that rational thought can defeat us in this structural game, because you just don't know where the queen is in the pack, or where under what cup the ball is. And this is your life that you're gambling with. And so it's very difficult to guess. So that rational thought kind of fails you from time to time. So now you're depending on instinct. Okay. And sometimes that instinct is not enough. And this is where, again, Imam Amin Muhammad was correct in saying that the Western psychology has to be baptized with the Deen of Islam, Islamic psychology and Islamic knowledge, in order for us to escape the traps that has been set for us structurally. So one of the things that the brother has to do is he has to understand the stages of his nafs. He has to understand jihad al-akbar, meaning the jihad of the nafs, the great jihad, talking about the desires of the heart now, and Imam al-Ghazali and that kind of tarbiyah that the Imam was talking about last night. I didn't want to get into it from that perspective, but don't let the smooth taste fool you. I understand it.
You're saying the men need this?
I'm saying the men need that. The woman need it too, but the man needs it in a particular way, because he's disproportionately affected by it. So he's got to get on his square. He's got to get on his deen, and he's got to understand the pitfalls that are there for him, and he's got to right the ship with Islam. He's got to right the ship with the correct interpretation, the correct hermeneutical understanding of Islam, not the toxic way, not that methodology, but understand the Islam of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and understand servant leadership, understand compassion, understand the prophetic paradigm. And as a part of my research, I developed, alhamdulillah, the prophetic response to some of these. Okay.
Can I interject really quick? And that's the thing that I'm really getting at. Like, I remember, you know, we've been going back and forth. I haven't really been doing it, but they call my name out. But I put out a set of videos, and, you know, one particular group, at least some among them, took it as I was attacking the group. And I made it very clear. Like, I highlighted a brother, Salafi brother, you know, it was Salafis. I was highlighting how I've met beautiful persons that are Salafi, for sure. And I made a special mental note, like, to intentionally mention that, because I don't think, like, I get the argument, and I can be wrong. I mean, I'm always open, but I don't think that it's the Salafi. Like I said, look, my people are in Sufi, my wife and children are in Sufi land. And those people ripped us off from the time we got off the plane. The last time I came back to America, I got ripped off. This is what they do in Sufi land, Black African Sufi land. So while I understand the argument regarding knowledge, etc., and I do agree with the Tarbiyah piece, I guess what's for me, I think that, and I guess I'm asking this too. Are we underestimating? Like, look, if I give you a glass with a hole in it and you pour water, the water's going to come out. If I give you a glass with no hole in it, the water's going to stay. Are we ignoring the vessel in and of itself? In other words, if I'm like a fundamentally good person, I don't rob, I don't sell cocaine and pimp, and I become a Muslim and I study in Saudi, chances are that I would just be a good brother. I may not have the same
Right.
understanding. And at the same time, if I go into the, the some other region, and if I was a shanking pimp, I'm still gonna, if I hadn't gotten that out of me, whatever, if I become whatever type of Muslim I become, I'll just put it that way, or whatever methodology, that's what I'm really saying. Whatever methodology I follow, whatever track I come under, if I at a fundamental level have not done the internal work to get the bad out, or if I haven't altered the good, that good remains present, I haven't altered it. Whatever methodology we get, that deformity will shine through. That's what I'm seeing as
What?
perhaps the issue.
Well, let me tell you that that is clearly a large part of the issue, because in any tradition, this is what I used to say when I was a preacher: if religion doesn't change you, then you ain't got no religion.
Right.
I don't care what kind of religion it is.
Right.
If it don't change you, then you ain't got none. All you are is a donkey carrying books on your back, but you're not, you are no more knowledgeable,
right,
than the next donkey.
So that's, and I think, and again, not to cut you, that's been my experience. Like just for, and I'm sharing this now. I'm just sharing my experience. I'll go back to Imam Muhammad. We were in classroom with Imam Muhammad, so we were able to sit with him in a very intimate way. And people would ask me, "What was that like?" And there's two things that I would always come up, like images. One was like, how like glass is transparent. It's like just this trend. The feeling was like this transparent. It's really weird. I don't know how to articulate it other than that. I just felt from him this transparency. Number one. Number two, there was this presence from him that I only sense it around children. Like when you're with, like when I have a 2-year-old son, and there's just like no evil in him. There's just this absolute innocence. Like human to human, like we know people. We grow up, south side of Chicago. We got family, da da da. Like people. That's just the human experience.
Yeah,
that's what I felt. So when you're around people, like you're a person, you can criticize a person's mistakes. You can criticize what they say. You can say, "Oh, they did this wrong methodologically, whatever." But that money can't buy that. That part can't be faked. That human element. And I think that a lot of times we get lost in the up here.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
down here.
At some point in
as
time,
an example of the problem.
Yeah, at some point, you have to get down to the core of the moral behavior, which is what tarbiyah is, right? It deals with moral behavior. That's what the word translates into, right? And I mean, the fundamental moral behavior of that person. But look, that is what religion and certain aspects of one's faith tradition is supposed to do to them. Like, have you ever met an aggressive Buddhist? Right? I mean, that is the point. He's a Buddhist. Right. He's a Buddhist monk. Okay. His tradition is non-aggression. If you meet a Buddhist, you can talk to me in 5 minutes and tell I'm not Buddhist.
Right.
Right? Because I'm a New Yorker. I get hyped. Yeah. Right. So that's why I was having fun last night with the Black Imams Roundtable, because one from Jersey, one from Queens, New York, like me, and the other one from Pittsburgh, and everybody's hyped. So I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
home. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
But the point is that if you deal with people in certain faith traditions, their behavior is supposed to um, illuminate their faith tradition. They're supposed to be a vessel of that tradition. This is why the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of his nicknames was Alameen.
That's what
Okay,
I'm getting at.
the
That's what,
truthful.
and I
Yeah.
hate to cut you off. That's what I was mentioning, Imam. For I
Yes.
think that in all of our discussions, we forget who the revelation came to, and
Yes.
it came to a fundamentally good human being.
Yes. He was the walking Quran, according to Aisha radiallahu anha. Right.
So yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's important. But of course, the nuance is, brother,
Mm-hmm.
that Allah can change your fundamental fitra. Okay.
Yes.
So Umar ibn al-Khattab was a warrior and came
Yeah.
looking for the prophet to kill him,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he was converted into a different kind of guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You understand? So
Yeah.
there are a lot of stories about people who were other than what one would say their fitra was, what their natural inclination is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the deen transformed them, and they became other people. They became their best self.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Right.
That's a part.
So
Yeah.
so that has to be, we have to keep that nuance difference there. So it's not just, I mean, the religion has to be additive to the vessel that it meets, right? It's not just,
Right.
hey, if you're a good person, you will be a good Muslim, right? And if
Mm.
you're a fundamentally bad person, you'll be a fundamentally bad Muslim. I mean, that's not the end of the story. I mean,
Yeah. True. That's true.
there is transformation there, right? So there's the miracle of transformation there,
I see.
right? I mean, so yeah, there's that as well. So, but at the end of the day, the solutions, which I don't want to lose track of, the solutions for the brothers is there. We can have another podcast on that, and I would love
Yeah.
to, just talking about solutions. But brothers, please know that you are not condemned to a legacy of being less than. You are not
Mm.
condemned to a box that we have to fit in. You don't have to be the brunt of the problem, and you don't have to be, the target
Yeah.
of the issue. We can all be transformed. We can all be changed. But as the Egyptians say on the Temple of Delphi, it
Right.
starts with knowing yourself.
Yeah.
It starts with knowing yourself,
For
and
sure.
it starts with doing the work of transformation. We have to do the work of transformation and being intentional about
Mhm.
being the best human beings that we can be, and being the best Muslims that we can be.
For sure. And I asked this question because, and I have a little smirk while you're going through it. And I'm putting up some of the, I know we don't have enough time to get to everything. Some of the observations and questions. Um, I wanted to get to about the issue of hurt people hurting people. We've been on that, but
Yes.
the reason why I want
Someone says just now, they have never heard anyone say that you won't go to heaven if you don't know Arabic. Well, let me tell you, brother, you need to get out more often. because that is a very prevalent feeling. And Muslims say that all the time. In fact, someone in the comments of the video that you looked at, Brother Imam Rashad, they said Arabic is the language of heaven, and that's why we all should learn it.
Yeah.
Right. So people
I
use
think this
all
is the
kinds
Imam.
of, yeah, people use all kinds of things. And that was, again, going back to Imam Amin, it's really because of lack of knowledge. I mean, a lot of people just don't know the deen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They just don't know the depths of the deen, and they pick up these statements and they just play it back like a parrot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let me see. Well, I put out enough. Here I'm looking at. There's a lot of comments here, but I think I put up a nice sample. But someone asked, Doc, do you have a not profit that this one can donate to?
No, I have a website, and thank you so much for that offer. I have a website that is crescentwellnessfoundation.org, and that is crescent, like the crescent moon, wellnessfoundation.org, all one word. It's not a subscription, it's just a site, an academic site, blogs, it has research, it has all of those things there. Please go to the site. When my book comes out, I love Islam, but I'm tired of Muslims, that will be available on Amazon next week. Go get a copy. It's just $30. That will help us do some traveling and spread the word. But if you just want to donate to somebody's site, then I'm sure Imam Rashad can do that. I know that the Black Imams, the Black Imams Roundtable, and that's Black Imams Roundtable, was talking about donations last night of 10, 20 bucks. Feel free to donate to them. They are doing good work, and I'm sure the Imam here has other great causes that we can donate to.
Yeah, I put the ticker down there at the bottom. It's a that's the 501 we have. But I do want to get I know, you know, I don't want to hold you all night, and I really appreciate the time that you took to spend with us. Maybe we're going to have to go back. We're going to talk more about solutions. I'm going to get more into relationships because my experience has been a little bit different in terms of that's why I asked you about which way do you see it, you know, the more on the side of the sisters, more on the side of the brothers, and again, but our sort of anecdotal experiences, they don't match up to the someone said they love the book title to you know, just the community experience. I have been mistreated by women more than men, but that's when we get into relationships.
Because you're too sweet, you're too nice, man.
Yeah, I know, but I can't change my nature, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, but alhamdulillah, Allah is God, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, there is that, and there is a balance with that. But let me tell you, the research puts the onus on the brothers. I mean, by a wide margin.
well, I have some controversy. We're not going to get into that because I know we got to go. But I have actually observed. While I get that, I have some questions regarding why. Like, it's like this in high school. Like, you all know who this guy is. You all know what he's about, and you all still fall for the same.
Yeah,
And
but
then, okay,
that's
so help.
blaming. That's victim blaming, Aki. The reality is this. I talked to a sister last week.
Yes, sir.
I talked to a sister last week, in Baltimore. I'll just say that.
Okay.
And because I did some personal sessions on that Sunday. Sister came in, been in the dean 3 years. 3 years. She's on her third marriage in 3 years. Her second marriage, her last marriage, the brother married her. After the walima and all that, she found out that the reason he wasn't coming home is because he had a whole other wife that she knew nothing about.
So
the other wife that she knew nothing about didn't know nothing about her either. Okay. She divorced the brother. I'm just telling you how crazy it gets. She divorces the brother. The brother starts sending her Quran and Hadith that he has made Tawbah for his mistake. And because he has made Tawbah and he wants to remarry her, that she is obligated to marry him back and send her, she had it in her phone, send her the Hadith that if she don't, that she's going to go to hell. So I'm just saying, the brothers put an extra twist on it.
But no, I'm not bad. I don't think I'm victim blame. I'm not. But look, we got to talk about relationships later. And look, I respect.
We can talk about relationships, and I am open to that. And I do a lot of relationship counseling and sessions. But I'm just saying that from a wide lens. Yeah. And I'm sure you can give a seminar on your life's experience, but that's from your lens. But from a wide lens, you have challenges there. And I'm not saying that women are innocent, because I got a wife, and trust me, and she's got a mouth on her like you won't believe. Right. So and she's from Philly. So it's like no holds barred from time to time. But I'm just saying that on par, when you deal with a wide lens, we have a lot of work to do as Black men, and we have a lot of work to do, and there is a power imbalance. There's a power imbalance there with men and women anyway.
Well, the next time we're gonna do it more of a debate form.
I'm
just messing with you, but I really appreciate you. Again, the book. You said what's the date, Doctor? When is it coming out?
I'm getting the proof copy on Friday. Once I approve it, it should be available next week.
Okay. I love Islam, but I'm tired of Muslims. This is our dear brother, and you gave them all the information as to how they can get. And look, see, we got please come back and talk about relations. I won't. And I'm telling you, I was watching the Great Debaters last night. I'm going to say resolve, whatever, and then I want you to. So
I am happy to talk about relationships, because the home is the center of the community, right? Sir. And until we get these homes together, these communities are always going to be fragmented, and our homes are suffering. Okay, and the children in these homes are suffering based on spiritual abuse. And so you have a lot of with Muslim families, the traditional way of getting children in line is to scare them straight. But when we scare them straight with the deen, then they abandon the deen, and the deen is what they need to save them.
Yeah.
So we've got to find that middle ground.
Sir. Well, this has been wonderful. This is our brother, Dr. Yusuf Frederick. Again, we'll, as a matter of fact, we do want to have you back for that. I know you're going to be, inshallah, for this weekend you'll be in Atlantic City?
Yes, sir. I'm leaving
Okay.
tomorrow to go up there, and I'll
Okay.
be there for the weekend, inshallah.
Okay, so I'll be there at least Friday and Sunday. I know we coming back to the Jersey. I have 2 events this weekend, but we'll have a chance to kind of connect in person, and we'll
Yeah.
continue to build. Also, want to make it up to Baltimore. I mean, I'm right now currently I'm in D.C. for the next throughout the week, but I won't be in town for the weekends. But I came up to Baltimore to one of the masjids, but I really want to go check out Masjid al Haq.
Yeah,
You know,
beautiful masjid,
yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
people, good imam, good-hearted brother,
yeah,
brother Mustafa Brent, and Imam Mustafa Brent, and just working hard, trying hard
yeah.
to do the best he can
Yes.
with that community there.
So inshallah, next time, we'll set a date. But I thank you all for tuning in. Again, stay tuned. We have some more interviews coming up, inshallah. The next time, as a matter of fact, we'll have our beloved Sheikh Muhammad Al Khamis, who's currently conducting the foundations or the Usuluddin program right now. And registration is still open. Inshallah, that'll be Monday after we come off this weekend. Until next time, peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.